Hello, and welcome back to another beautiful and exotic episode of Transylvaniacs, the show where we try to watch as many Dracula adaptations as humanly possible.
Every episode, we try and watch every Dracula adaptation from Dracula A to Dracula Z. Can we please back up a little bit to where you said beautiful and exotic? I have concerns. Are we now a strip club?
Yes, a little bit. Not a strip club, but a gentleman's club, because we are marketing as being classy. I don't think I've ever seen a straight up strip club use exotic, but like a gentleman's club, which is somehow much, much worse.
Are we like a burlesque show where it's like horny but also artsy? I feel like the overlap between like Dracula fans and burlesque fans is basically one circle anyway.
You are 100% correct about that. If for some reason you are just joining us, my name's Colleen. I work at a hair salon, and I also work for the Hard Times, kind of. Somewhat. I do a whole bunch of other stuff, too, but I do this with my friend Will. Will, introduce yourself.
My name is Will. I live in Philadelphia. I work in nonprofits. I also am a photographer, and I am also one of the foremost potato chip critics on Instagram.
You are very correct about that. And today we have an ultra special guest, Nina Hylen. Woohoo, Nina!
Woo!
Please introduce yourself.
So, my name is Nina, and I have the benefit of having a kind of job that is so instantly recognizable you barely have to explain it, which is lovely.
Yay.
I am a librarian. So
easy, done, love it.
Yes, I know. If you can just say it to a child and they understand, like that is like my ideal kind of job. Like love when I meet like a nurse or a teacher. I'm like, this is perfect. I can picture exactly what you do every day.
Instead of somebody who's like, I do sales and data analysis, and I'm like, what does that mean?
I'm so jealous.
Yeah, or like
you don't
PR.
You don't have to explain to people what a registered community organization is.
Oh my god, oh my god. I will say I always get the super fun comment from people being like, oh, well, everything's pretty much online now, right? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't do anything at work all day.
Please don't tell me
nothing.
I just sit on the computer and cry because everything's online.
God, that's so fucking annoying, though.
I know. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm like, yeah, have you never seen a book? Still, they just got rid of all of them.
They were lost in the great digitization.
Listen,
it's like the burning of the Alexandria again.
Listen, if like boomer political cartoons are to be believed, there are no books anymore. No millennial has ever seen a book. No one under the age of 40 has seen a book.
Oh shit,
Nope.
You're totally right. No books.
Kids always be on their damn phone. That's book now. Not a phone, just vibes.
Just vibes.
That was the movie. Not a phone in sight. Just
Not a
vibes.
phone in sight. Good God. But yeah, Nina, you have been mentioned on the show multiple times, mostly because you are an extremely prolific horror buff, I would say. You do the 31 horror reviews every October, which you've been doing for a long time at this point, and is very impressive to me because I don't think I can name 31 of like literally anything, including years of my own life. But
thank you.
You have seen more horror than any human should, and I respect that immensely. And yeah, we've all been friends for a long time. We have seen many a film together, and importantly, Will and I have seen your high school performance of a shortened, abridged Dracula, which I believe we reviewed in one of our mailbags about a year ago. So, if you are a longtime fan, you will recognize this here guest.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say we super condensed version of Dracula. Just all the main themes, just really packed on top of each other.
The absolute,
oh my god,
the artistic choice to represent both Romania and London as a living room in Syracuse was stunning.
Real.
You know, true thespians will transport you. They will take you to places you didn't think you would be able to go.
Well, I have a funny story about the word thespian before we get started. So when I was in roughly 5th grade, we did a like middle school production of Robin Hood. And I played Prince John because I have always been a fucking ham, first of all, most importantly.
That's like perfect cast.
I know, it's really good. I don't even think I was casted that. I think I was just so fucking bossy. I was like, I'm the only one who can read good. Like, I didn't even fight for Maid Marian. She didn't have shit to do. I didn't want to be Robin Hood, but I was like, look, we're gonna do this. and I'm your best choice, all right? I will lobby extensively. But after the show, y'all may remember from college, Alex Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Who I went to high school with, who I believe now has like multiple children and is doing like cool interior home renovations and shit for people in Vermont. Good for him. But his father, who at the time was 100, so at this point is also probably still some
like,
shade of
is
100.
Dead? Like, what?
No, Mason is eternal.
Wow.
Approached me after the show, and like I grew up in a really small town, you know everybody, so like it wasn't weird. And he was just like, I just wanted to say that like you are quite the budding thespian. I was a 5th grader, so I did not know what thespian meant.
Oh,
but
no.
immediately panicked because I thought he said you're a budding lesbian, and I was like,
I mean,
he was also not wrong, which is why I panic.
the gay panic.
Just
Like,
full
no.
gay panic. I was like, what do you mean?
It's like that. Oh my god, sorry. It's like that
No,
Vine
go.
where the girl's like, I'm a lesbian. And then her brother's like, I thought you were American.
That is exactly how it went down. But me just being like, how could he have known?
His gaydar was insane.
Insane, absolutely clocking like an 11-year-old child.
Listen, only watch Queen of the Damned once, okay?
God,
I'd be like, we're doing theater. What do you expect? Come
what do
on
you
now,
expect? Oh God. Anyway, today, as many of you may have guessed, based on the fact that we've been hyping up this episode for like a fucking year, and it's in the title, and I keep referencing it at the end of previous episodes, we are looking at the 1992 film by Francis Ford Coppola, Bram Stoker's Dracula, which, wow, I am very excited for us to talk about this, because boy oh boy is there talking.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God, yes.
Before we do our like usual thing, I was just kind of curious if you guys had any history with this particular film, and if you've seen it before, etc.
So, funny enough, first of all, thank you guys for having me on this episode.
Oh my
I'm
God, no
pretty
problem.
sure I pulled a Colleen and just like strong-armed my way into it, being like, well, when you talk about this, I'm gonna be on the pod.
Yeah, you're like, well, that one's mine. Thanks.
Yeah, the second Chris was on, I was like, interesting. I will do this one. Thank you.
Since we're taking dibs.
Yeah, since you're having friends, here I am.
Hey.
And because I got to watch this in high school in an English class, which
Oh, no.
if you've seen the whole thing, you're like, what?
Burn.
But luckily, we did not watch the whole thing.
Thank fucking
Although
God.
so much of it is so unabashedly horny, you like don't need to watch the whole thing to be like immediately self-conscious of your like teenage body and like
Yes.
everyone in the room.
100%. Yeah, no, that is a completely fucking wild choice to.
It
Yeah, no, that's
much
insane.
respect to my English teacher. I love her, Miss Mathis. I love her so much. We took in senior year of high school, you could take English electives. And the one with her was sci-fi fantasy. So, of course, I was like, yeah, I'll be doing that. Thank you. And we had a whole, like, vampire unit. And, of course, you can't talk about vampires without talking about Dracula. So we read through the book, but just, like, certain chapters. We didn't read the whole thing. Just, like, excerpts that she thought were important, such as, like, all of Jonathan's entries. I think that really lays down like the mythos kind of of
sure,
Dracula.
for sure.
And then I think we read some of Renfield's stuff, and we definitely read like The Last Voyage of the Demeter, and then I think a lot of the early Lucy and Mina interactions, like when Lucy changes, essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so like a lot of important things, and like I know we definitely watched part of this in conjunction with watching like a scene or two of the Bela Lugosi Dracula.
Nice.
To kind of, because I think, of course, like because that film adaptation is like so early and pretty much like the first Dracula, that is like the kind of go-to image you think of when you think of Dracula. So I think we like were comparing and contrasting how Dracula as a character appears in that movie versus how he appears in this one, which I'm sure we'll talk about, because it's like kind of atypical to how you would picture Dracula to look. So we kind of like we went over that, and then I think we watched like a couple other different like vampire media, such as I think we definitely watched an episode of Buffy because it was like her favorite show.
Oh, yes.
Queen.
Miss Mathis, let's fucking go.
I know, she's like so queen for that also. But yes, we did not watch the full movie.
Thank God.
But several years later, I was like scouring Target, their like $5 movie bin, and I found this, and I remember being like, oh, I enjoyed what we got to watch of this, so I'm just gonna buy it and watch it. And I was like, oh boy, no wonder we didn't finish this in high school. Oh my god.
Bork.
But yeah, I mean, obviously no regrets, but like, holy moly, that was... Yeah, it was a ride the first time, the second time, and then again for the pod. So it's always, and holds up in some ways as like a Dracula adaptation. You know, I enjoyed watching it. I won't get into the weeds of whether or not it's good, but it is a movie that has so much happening. So I can't.
You are so right.
Yeah, it is
so much to see.
Will, what about you?
Okay, so, obviously this movie has lived in infamy in pop culture for a long time, but really where this movie and I intersect is, about either a billion or, 10 years ago, I can't remember which at this point, I wrote for a movie blog called Rooster Illusion Reviews, and our founder, his first review on this site was a review of this very movie, Bram Stoker's Dracula. And James Melville absolutely hated this movie. Just was having none of it. And this review ended up becoming one of our most popular, most read reviews on our site. One of the other ones was Colleen's wife, Addie, wrote an article on the Winky's Diner scene in Mulholland Drive. That was like number 2. But like our number 1 with a bullet was our Dracula review. And we could see through WordPress what the analytics of like what brought people to our website, like what Google searches brought people into the reviews and what they clicked on.
No.
Would either of you care to wager a guess what search on Google brought people to our website and to this movie specifically?
Vampire porn.
Oh,
Yeah,
so...
I was gonna go with like Winona Ryder boobs.
Oh,
yes,
so close.
also
wolf
so
sex.
close, okay.
It was wolf sex.
Oh my god. All of the Team Jacob girlies were going crazy on Rooster Illusion.
Oh my god, fuck, that's funny.
Yeah, this was after this review and after our very peculiar bump in popularity. I kind of read it and made an assessment with myself. Not because of that search, but I guess the more that I deny it's not because of the search, it's going to seem like it's because of the search. But just, I looked at this movie and like, I think maybe this might be for me. It's not for James, but it might be for me.
In spite of the wolf sex.
Yes. And sure enough, It absolutely was. I was just delighted by this absolute nut bar of a movie.
Yep. Excellent. As with many films from around this time, like, because we've been doing this for so long, you can kind of see the trends in vampire media and in Dracula media. So, like, we know that the 70s were, like, very, very popular for Dracula adaptations in particular. And then in the, like, late 90s and early 2000s, we had other vampire media, but a lot of, like, Anne Rice stuff. Almost said Ayn Rand. Can you imagine if Anne
Oh my God.
wrote Interview with the Vampire? That is the worst crossover of all time. That's
It would just be like,
God.
I don't even know. She would find a way to be like, socialism is hell.
hell.
The vampire's like, I've lived 10 million years and I refuse to pay this
My
much
taxes.
in taxes.
Oh God, Lestat just being the worst centrist imaginable.
Oh, Jesus. I want to live in a society where I do not have support to support the freeloaders.
Exactly, 100%. Good God. Anyway, so yes, late 90s, early 2000s, there was a lot of, like, there was Queen of the Damned, there was Interview with the Vampire, and then there were the, like, the horrible Van Helsing movie, the Underworld movie. So a lot of that, kind of in the wake of Blade, the, like cybergoth kind of shit. So me and my friend Lindsay, who was my best friend all through middle and high school, had kind of, like, opposite upbringings, and I was not raised in a particularly strict household, but, like, my parents were, like, keeping an eye on what media I was consuming, so naturally the way to avoid that is to watch shit at other people's houses, especially if they have a TV in their room, because that was, like, the ultimate luxury. So I watched, like, pretty much everything in that genre from the ages of, like, 12 to 15. So I saw this movie probably somewhere in the realm of 12 to 15, which is absolutely fucking rancid. But I remember most of it. Yep, it was probably formative in ways much worse than I could ever imagine, and will need these analyzed by a therapist. But, you know.
Budding thespian ass.
Oh, God, Jesus. Like the most theater kid you can imagine. But anyway, yeah, I haven't seen this since then. It has been a very long time. So I forgot huge portions of it. But I was very excited to revisit it specifically for this project. So, yeah, kind of with that, do we want to talk a little bit about, I know, Will, if you could take us through the casting crew, but I know, Nina, you also have some, like, production tidbits that you wanted to share because you're a fucking nerd.
Oh, yeah, I always nerd out over,
Let's fucking
like,
go.
Yeah, so if I notice a time to squeeze something in there, I'll squeeze it in there, so
me,
don't worry.
I have got a lot of notes myself. I'm going to lay out in very neurotypical normal way all of the incredible practical effects are in this movie.
Yes!
Alright, so let's run down our cast. In the role of Dracula, we have got Gary Oldman playing Jonathan Harker with the most questionable British accent since Mary Poppins. We have got Keanu Reeves. Our Renfield in this version is Tom Waits playing a Ron Perlman character.
Yes! Oh my gosh, yup. Yup, wow. He's like skinny. He's like his like he's
Fuck.
his Waluigi.
Oh my god, no.
I wish there was a way to Waluigi Ron Perlman. Fuck. Like you know, mimetically. I wish I could. I'm like, Waron. I'm like, it's not working. Damn.
Wow,
right.
Perlman.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. You get it.
We have got as Dr. Seward Richard E. Grant, Arthur Holmwood, Cary Elwes,
Yeah, honestly.
and finally, for the first time as his actual character, not an amalgamation, just as the character, Quincy Morris, played by the Rocketeer himself, Billy Campbell.
Incredible. And did you say Anthony Hopkins?
Oh, we're getting down there. But first,
don't worry.
Yeah. But first, we gotta point out Queen of My Heart, Winona Ryder as Mina.
Ugh.
And newcomer to this movie, Sadie Frost as Lucy, which does leave us with a very Van Helsing-shaped hole in this cast that is filled by Anthony Hopkins.
Incredible. We love to see
So
it.
good.
So fucking good.
I made a note about like him as Van Helsing seems like almost too obvious, but it like fits so well that you're like, I can't imagine anybody else doing this.
It's like when you see an old film and you're like, God, this is so tropey, and you're like, no, it made the trope.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, literally.
Literally.
Like, he was born to do this.
God.
Also, I did not notice until this viewing, is that Anthony Hopkins is also playing the bishop at the beginning of the movie, who is like, I'm sorry, Dracula,
Yes.
your wife's soul is in hell because she unalived herself.
Yeah, not unalived, but yes.
That is actually how they wrote it out. Very prescient, very weird. Yeah. Prophetic.
Say TikTok studied this.
Yes.
Before making their guidelines.
Holy fuck. Okay, yeah, so wowie zowie. This is a huge film, both in terms of its legacy and its production. It grossed $215 million against a $40 million budget in 1992. Insane. So it had a shit ton of money thrown at it, and it made so much more. But we've also got, again, the direction by Francis Ford Coppola, screenplay by James V. Hart. All sorts of insane people worked on this, and it won a lot of awards. I believe it
acting.
got not for acting,
No.
Not at all, but it definitely won for costume design and makeup, as it should, because they ate. But yeah, do y'all want to give some juicy tidbits about the completely batshit production of this movie?
Yes. Can I start off with something that you mentioned? You said this is like extremely theater kid.
Yeah,
And you do not know how right you were. The original kernel for this idea came when Francis Ford Coppola was a 17-year-old working at a theater camp over the summer.
Oh, fuck.
I have a quote here about his first encounter with Dracula. It was when I was 17. I was a drama camp counselor, and my girlfriend was a drama counselor for an affiliated camp nearby. I had a lot of fun with these 9-year-old boys, but one of my motivations was to get them to sleep so I could go visit my girlfriend. So I read them the entire Dracula, the original.
Holy shit.
And just seeing the power of this book and how it captivated and terrified these children stuck with him for all of these years. So I think it was actually, Winona Ryder was one who approached him with this script back in the early 90s, that he's like, hell yeah, let's do this.
Can you imagine terrorizing children in your shitty theater camp job, and then like 30 years later being like, you know what, let's revisit those great times?
I'd be like, from horny, this started. From horny, it will end.
From horny it shall end. Ashes to ashes.
He was like perfect.
Good fucking God. Yeah, did not know how right I was. That's depressing.
I was gonna say, like, I was reading that originally Christian Slater was offered to play Jonathan, but he turned it down, and then, of course, was like, I regret that. But, like, and Coppola wanted, like, the Jonathan character to be, like, kind of a heartthrob box office draw, because, like, it's really kind of a nothing part. It's, like, kind of a thankless role.
It really is.
Which, like, and, like, Keanu, like, obviously we love, he's, like, he can do no wrong in our eyes in some things, but I think Christian Slater would have been worse. I cannot picture him being, like, in Victorian England. I would have been like, I was like, I can't imagine him. I'd be like, he has like 1980s face. I'm like,
This is a thing we have complained about multiple times throughout this show, where we will see an actor like from a 60s or 70s adaptations like, I'm sorry, this man fundamentally looks like he knows who the Rolling Stones are. He cannot fit into this environment. It would have been exactly that same thing.
Discount Beetle, yeah.
No, literally, I cannot.
Literally.
And apparently, Coppola was like, when asked about like Keanu, he said like one of the reasons that like the accent work is not great is because he was like trying so hard. Like he practiced so much that's why it's like so stunted.
Oh, I have
I know. I'm like, my poor baby.
I have another quote so about hard. That Coppola did in Entertainment Weekly in 2015. We knew it was tough for him to affect an English accent. He tried so hard. That was the problem, actually. He wanted to do it perfectly, and in trying to do it perfectly, came off as stilted. I tried to get him to just relax with it and not do it so fastidiously. So maybe I wasn't as critical of him, but that's because I like him personally so much. To this day,
Fair.
He's a prince in my eyes.
Yes! Wow. No,
okay.
literally. I think that's why, like, anyone who watches this, I feel like, would say the exact same thing. They'd be like, you did such a good job. Not really, but you tried so hard. We love you. Go, here's your cookie. Thank you.
We love you, baby.
I know. We're like, give him a little kiss and be like, you did so good at work today.
Just give him a little kissy.
Yes.
Good God. Okay. Whew. So, let me give the briefest of brief plot summaries. I don't want to summarize the whole thing because, again, we have been over the story of Dracula many, many times, but I do want to point out the distinct differences in this particular adaptation that I think we will see in other adaptations moving forward. So, overall, the tone of this film is very grandiose and Victorian, and really goes for, like, adult blockbuster love story. But with extra spicy horror on the side. It's not, it's not particularly gory or scary, but it is very dark and kind of, in my opinion, ahead of the curve for like what we would see later in the 90s for the kind of like sexy cybergoth stuff. But the particular focus of this adaptation is on the lore of Dracula himself, who we find out and has been kind of hinted at in other adaptations is Vlad the Impaler. And his love story with Mina, where Mina is the reincarnation of his previous wife. We have seen this actually, I think, in the Dan Curtis Dracula. That was kind of hinted at, but here is where that becomes the focus of the film, where we start to see a love triangle between Mina, Jonathan, and Dracula. So that is very much where the lens of this film is at, as opposed to some other films. There are actually not a lot of plot differences, excepting the major romance. But this is one of our first films to have the entire Gang of Light. We've got Jonathan, we've got Seward, we've got Holmwood, we've got Quincy motherfucking Morris. None of these roles have been combined in any way, which is pretty new. And yeah, I mean, in this one, Jonathan stays in the castle for quite a bit longer than he does in the film, but this one is actually pretty by the beat. We do get Dracula going to the castle, and then everybody going to England, and then everybody going back to the castle. Like, we have all of the travel. We have the big grandiose chase. This is in London as opposed to Whitby, but that's kind of par for the course. But yeah, this is pretty accurate to the book in terms of the beat by beat, as opposed to, the focus and all of the backstory is written in. This is kind of like very good fan fiction. Like, this is those, like all like the Star Wars, like non-canon novels and stuff like that, where like people universe. Just write, like it's expanded universe of Dracula, but the actual plot points are pretty much the same.
That is such an incredible way of phrasing it.
Yeah, I mean, like, am I wrong?
No, not at all.
No, literally, like, someone was like, but what if, like, Dracula actually was in love with Mina and like
Man.
literally kind of going from there.
Yes. And they shoehorn in all of these scenes. And
Yep.
they're like, wow, like, what was the prequel to Dracula? You know?
And just Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, exactly. But wow. Yeah, dude, I kind of feel like we should just get into our personal reviews before we start talking about performances, but like let's just talk about what we felt about this film as a whole. What'd y'all fucking think of this?
I think in terms of, I mean, obviously we kind of talked about like Keanu's shortcomings in this, but like us, which no shortcomings, we love you, but I feel like every casting choice in this is like it's so good. Like especially the kind of like almost like secondary characters, like
Oh yeah.
the trio of like Homewood, Seward, and Quincy is so good. I feel like they are like so textbook, like, and like obviously the Van Helsing is so good. I think like Sadie Frost as Lucy is so good. Like she's so fun that like all, and I think like those, they brought so much more to those characters than you get even when reading the book. Like I think they did a really good job of taking characters that you might not really necessarily care about and like they're like stars like watching it. Like I love all the like secondary characters. I think they do such a good job.
Yeah, it's a very like rich film in terms of the dialogue and the intercharacter relationships. Like what you said, you actually don't get a ton of in the novel because it's all, you know, epistolary stuff, you know?
Yeah, like you can really like even with minimal scene work together, I think like you get a good sense of the dynamics. And I said like I know I wrote in the note somewhere that I feel like you could see like a genuine friendship between like Mina and Lucy. Like I liked their scenes together and like I feel like they clearly cared about each other a lot instead of just making like Lucy just like a plot point, which I feel like she very often is. It does get a little like putting Mina as like she's not like the other girls and like kind of making Lucy like, oh, look at this like floozy, but
yeah, 100%.
I still think like the Winona and Sadie together works really well, and I'm glad you get to see like them interact. I feel like more than you do again when like even reading the book. So
Yeah, you really get a sense of why they are actually friends in this adaptation that you don't normally get in any other version. It feels like a very believable friendship. They seem to actually like each other instead of being either like friends who are just like thrown together by the plot or the like implied romance, like thinly veiled romance that you get in some of the, I guess like the 60s versions that we saw a lot of.
Yeah, and like I feel like, yeah, as you said, you also sometimes get this weird like resentment and competition between them, which is so antithetical to the actual text. But yeah, that was one of the things that really stood out for me as I was like, wow, everybody in this seems like an actual person.
yeah,
Like,
very fleshed out.
Very fleshed out. And that makes it really riveting to watch. Like, this is a long movie. This is over 2 hours long. And I'm pretty sure all of us have can't sit still disease. And this is mesmerizing in terms of the performances, the dialogue. Something for me that stood out watching it this time was how off the fucking wall, out of pocket the editing is. What the fuck?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of... This movie clips along really quickly. Like, it really doesn't waste time because there is a lot of material to get into 2 hours, which is why most Dracula that we've seen in, like, you know, the 2010s and 2020s has been miniseries or television shows. Like, there's just a lot of material. So it clips along. It doesn't drag. Like, we've seen some adaptations spend way too much time in, like, the middle of the book for no fucking reason. But something that I found very amusing is they tried to kind of shoehorn in the epistolary stuff, meaning that you are getting information via newspapers, telegrams, journal entries, that sort of thing. But in doing that, there's a lot of voiceovers, and there's a lot of like overlays and superimposing, which I was not expecting. And it is kind of, it dates the film a lot, but I don't think I hate it.
Okay, so one of the things that I find really appealing about this movie, and part of the reason that I just can't let it alone, is the filmmaking craft, like the pure craft of this movie. Because it is truly like nothing else. Going into this movie, because he saw this as, Coppola saw this as a story about a changing culture, where, you know, it's set right at the actual dawn of cinema. You know, like, Londoners are running from vampires and also from a train that's coming out of the screen! Like, they're... And so he really wanted to capture that feeling of early cinema, that cinema of attraction. And so, going to this movie, he wanted it to be all practical effects. And he actually...
Hell yeah.
And when I was reading some articles, when he was talking to his VFX team, they kept trying to get away from it. So he fired his VFX team and hired his son, Roman Coppola, who is into stage magic, to do all the effects.
Well, you know what?
Which is, I think, this is the tightest, most valid use of Nepo Baby ever, because this shit rocks so hard. He wanted to only use the kind of camera trickery that they would have at the turn of the century in the early days of film. So that's why you get a lot of overlay shots. The mist of Dracula turns into green mist and comes in through a window. I thought that was one of the few instances of CGI. Incorrect. They use that by doing multiple exposures, running the film back twice, 3 times through a camera, so you get the smoke and then have it coming in through the bars. I think one of you noted the mirror effects of, like, having Harker shave and have Dracula pull his arm on his shoulder and you don't actually see that. That is pure having just, like, you're filming the back of an extra and have Keanu through a hole in the wall where the mirror should be and having them mirror each other. Like,
that's fucking cool.
I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Love that shit.
It's model trains, it's
Yes, so many miniatures. I love
it's
the
miniatures.
Minis.
It is Gary Oldman in, 5 hours in a makeup chair, because he kept suggesting cool things they could add to the makeup, and then they did, and it sucked for him, but
he suffered for
but
us.
it looks
so
cool.
good.
And
So fucking good.
I feel like what makes this movie stand apart is that no other movie is made like this. It takes the techniques that guys like Georges Méliès in the 1890s and the early 20th century are doing, and then throw as much money as they can at it. And I think it is visually such a feast that I just cannot shut up about it or stop thinking about it.
Yeah, dude. And regarding some of the visual effects, something that I really enjoyed, and I think we all pointed this out in our notes because we're all fucking nerds, is the shadow play. Particularly in Oldman's first entrance when he is in old Dracula form. He's got this crazy fucking wig on. They have his shadow moving independently of him, which again, finding out that this was done completely practically is just fucking cool. And I also loved in the scene in which Jonathan is seduced by the brides, they have the sheets kind of moving like there's somebody under them. But you don't actually just a lot of really creative ways to do fantasy effects that are extremely unique. Like you said, Will, you're they don't make movies like this currently, and they weren't at the time either because this was early days of CGI. Man, it just looks good. It looks fucking good. You mentioned the makeup, how long that took. This did win Best Makeup, and it fucking should. Gary Oldman is alternating unrecognizable and very much like young Dracula. His swag is so iconic. And then old Dracula
that
has
wig.
The wig, dude,
The wig is so good. His wig work in this is incredible.
is absolutely whack. Like, I feel like I'm not particularly into drag, but Nina, I know that you like Drag Race.
I was gonna say his shit is laid down.
This is drag.
Like this is drag.
This is drag.
He's got like a 40-inch unit. Human hair.
Yes.
Human hair, mama. Like, it looks insane.
To quote Megan Thee Stallion, 30-inch weave with the long eyelashes.
Yeah, that's deadass what he looks like in this. It's so good.
It's so good. Everything is just fucking lush. Like, the sets, the costumes, the makeup, the score. Like, as you said, Will, like, throw as much money at it as possible, and it fucking worked. Like, this is just a feast for the fucking eyes. Winona's main Victorian outfit when she is, like, in London, and some of her early scenes with young Dracula, where she's got, like, the bustle and the corset and, like, the tiny little hat with the fascinator attached to it. I'm like, this is just like a nerd's dream. You know what I mean? And this is how we've talked about before how some of the 70s films in particular have a bit of a community theater feel to them, costuming wise. This is the Broadway version. Like, they got people who know what the fuck they're doing. Everything the attention to detail is deranged. Particularly, Dracula's armor in the opening scene when he's Vlad the Impaler. Whoa, it's like, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, it's very hard to describe, but I encourage you to look it up. It is red, and it's a full body armor, like covering his face with holes for the eyes, and there's ears on it, and it's got this, like, it almost looks like musculature.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks like an old, like, musculature, like, drawing.
Like an anatomical thing.
Yeah, it's so good.
I think it is supposed to be a wolf because you can go on YouTube and you can watch the storyboards that are put together almost like a little animation or like a comic. And in those early storyboards, he's just wearing like a full-on wolf head. And so it's like the costume designer just took that very literal design and made it into like the coolest, most like sleek, weird, like 90s anime, like extreme, like berserk core thing possible.
I was gonna say, this is berserk, like, for fucking sure. Even though I think this was post manga, pre-anime, but like, you can see the influence for fucking sure.
I know Guillermo del Toro saw that suit and was like, "Now that's what I'm fucking talking about." I know he saw that and was like, "That is so like Crimson Peak. Like, I can see so much, like Hellboy. Like, it's so good."
Oh man, yeah. But this film is incredible to just look at aesthetically, and in terms of the effects, it is incredible. It is really fucking top notch. In terms of kind of going back to some writing points, as I said, this is very much focused on the love story between Mina and Dracula, which is a focus that is not in the original novel, but we do see in other adaptations. What did you two think about this as an inclusion, as a focus? Like, did it do it for you? Were you annoyed by it?
Oh, I'm never annoyed by romance. That's like crack for me.
Okay, valid.
Which, like, it's funny because, like, I don't love a rom-com, but, like, I mean, you guys know, I love, love smut. So I was just like, this is so smut-coded. Like, I, like, just being, like, I love, like, a morally gray, borderline, like, evil character being like, no, but I love her. Like, which is so toxic. I know. It's like the thing I know about myself is, like, I love a toxic romance, unfortunately.
Shit happens, dude. Listen, we've all been there.
And to be fair, the chemistry between Gary Oldman and Winona is, like, insane, especially compared to, like, her scenes with Keanu, that I'm like, yeah, I was like, they be fucking. I was like, there's no way. Like, and, like, weirdly, I don't know, I'm sure there's some, like, thesis about this, but, like, it's a very common vampire trope to have, like, the main vampire be in love with someone who they think is, like, the reincarnation of their, like, original love interest.
Yeah, this is the same plot point that's in Dracula in like 1972 or something.
Yep. And again, I think in either the Dan Curtis one or this, I think the Dan.
Oh,
Curtis one,
it was
yeah.
definitely Dan Curtis. Yeah,
It's fucking Dan Curtis. But yeah, like that makes sense as a trope to me. What did you think, Will? I'm curious.
So, I actually I have some bones to pick with the how the romance sits in the story, or at least the way that it is written in. So, like everybody else who's ever made a Dracula adaptation, Francis Ford Coppola says no one ever did the book, and we're doing the book. But here's the thing, is they very consciously don't. It almost feels like you're doing like a what if, like an alternate version where something else happens. Where you have this introduction of the reincarnated love that veers the entire story off of its rails, because once you're at that point and he becomes obsessed with Mina and tracking her down, that completely veers from the entire point of why Dracula is in England in the first place and what his goals are in the actual book. And right. I think even critics who, because I wrote some reviews down, even critics who like this movie, like Ebert, kind of point that out, that the plot doesn't really go anywhere, because it doesn't. It literally, like, just the actual main plot of the book just does not actually go anywhere, and it just focuses on the story, which works. But it's not the book, but I think the pure charisma between these two leads is what sells it. And it is more of like a tone poem than an actual like tight script.
I like the phrase tone poem. Yeah, that suits it.
More
I
like
think
bone poem.
Oh.
I think I'm probably aligning similarly with you, Will, but also with you, Nina, and Dracby with you, and also with you. Anybody who is a relapsed Catholic just shuddered. Very sorry.
Yeah, well, let's say if you're a relapsed Catholic and you watch this, you're just like, oh no, he's going to church. No.
I assume most relapsed Catholics lapse by also stabbing a cross and it spurts blood.
Absolutely batshit way to begin the film, by the way. I was like, what?
I was like, yep, work, diva.
Work,
it was like I will say, like, it is like fundamentally probably much like scarier to just not have a backstory for Dracula and just be like, why is this guy here? But if you're gonna do any sort of backstory, I think they did. Like, I enjoyed like the theatrics of him basically like damning the church, because, which fair enough, because he's like, I fought this war for you, I won this war for you, and now you guys said that the love of my life is gonna be like eternally damned because she killed herself. Like, bye. Fuck y'all. Bye. I'm ending it. And I'm like, you know what? Fair. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, the church is still not great, and I can only imagine what it was like in like the Byzantine Empire or whatever. I don't even know.
Friendship with the church,
like, you know what? Fucking years ago.
Friendship with the church is over. New best friend is infernal powers.
Yeah, so it's like, it is kind of like a very bombastic way to start a very bombastic movie.
Yeah,
so
great adjective.
I was like, you know what? If you're gonna add backstory, at least you like kind of freaked it. Like they did like the most.
It. But
and and it shoehorns in like the Vlad the Impaler of it all, which I'm always gonna like, because like it's fun to have like some history in like myth. So yeah.
But I think that I like the romance on the surface level because it's sexy. Like, I'm a simple woman, all right? Like, I see young Winona Ryder, I get horny bonked, you know?
Yeah, I see boobs and I go,
bonk, bonk, bonk. Yeah, exactly. Awooga, awooga.
Yeah, my
head maybe turned into a wolf head. I had, like, steam whistles in my eyes. It was a whole thing.
Yeah. And as we've discussed, they have incredible chemistry. Like, it is electric to watch. I do think it does the character of Mina a disservice because she spends the latter half of this film. In the novel, she is the character with the most agency, frankly, IMO. Like, she's doing the fucking work, and everybody respects her for that. Whereas, and when she becomes, when she starts to change, it lights a fire under their ass because they're most powerful. Like, the queen's been taken off the board, fam. Whereas, in this, I feel like she spends so much time kind of hand-wringing about having an affair, and then is very quickly succumbs to Dracula's power toward the end. So I think it is a flawed arc, as you said, Will, but I am here for the smut. Like,
yep,
that rules.
Just don't examine it too closely.
Don't think
love this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so good.
If you are interested in hearing about horrible toxic romances, may I suggest?
I was like, my diary?
Let's go. Bada bing bing bing. May I suggest the Dan Olson, aka Folding Ideas, 3-part series titled A Lukewarm Defense of 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh no.
In which he reviews all 3 films, and they're fucking terrible. But yeah, like if you want a deep dive on why this shit is stupid, do that. For now, we are here for eye candy. But speaking of smut, I feel it is unfortunately time for us to discuss the number one searched term that brought people to Rooster Religion.
Yep.
Wolf sex. So, in this version, as we have seen before, when Dracula initially attacks Lucy, all of the attacks in the novel are coded as rape. This film uncodes it and says, "Here's some text." So Dracula in this is in not a full wolf form, but I would say something akin to a
muscular wolf man. This is gonna be like. For the 5 aging millennials, have you ever played Altered Beast and there's the real ripped werewolf? It is like that.
It's like that, 100%. And if you haven't played Altered Beast, I'm pretty sure it's in the Nintendo Virtual Console on the Switch. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not good.
Doobie's just looking like, I don't know how they did it. Again, the makeup in this is incredible. It does just kind of look like Gary Oldman is a werewolf. And I'm like, damn.
Yep.
It's scary, but effective.
Compare this to season 3 of Buffy, in which we have Seth Green as a werewolf, which came out 6 years later and looks like absolute dog shit. I will send y'all photos of that because it looks rank.
I feel
rancid.
like I gotta do a little side ranking of Transylvaniac's Gaiden of ranking of of werewolf appearances in media and how good the werewolf designs are.
Yeah, because good God, it's not good in Buffy. But here, it looks okay. I don't think it looks as good as the rest of the makeup in the film, but that might also be on purpose. I don't think the audience is supposed to be like, oh yeah, I want to fuck that wolf. It's scary. It's icky. And this is a direct graphic rape scene. And boy, oh boy, it is hard to watch. So this for me is the major part of the movie where I'm like, was this necessary? I don't know. Because afterward, I think what we actually got, which we did not get before, is Mina rescues Lucy, brings her inside, and Lucy is agonized. She is disoriented. She again, she's not really in her right mind while this is happening. But Sadie Frost's performance is really heartbreaking. And particularly in the aftermath. And then in the following scene, she is trying to be normal around Seward. And you can see how clearly Lucy, the character, is putting on a brave face for a man. And that is a layer to her that I don't think we've seen in any adaptation. I don't think we've seen her experience the aftermath. I think we've seen she's a slut and then she dies. You know? So I liked that, but I don't know if I needed to see a stunt double in a wolf suit rape a woman outside. I don't know if I needed to see that.
Especially because then, like, when he sees Mina, he's like, oh no, she saw me. And I'm like, yeah, maybe just don't do that. Maybe just don't do all that. Especially if you're looking for your, like, one true love, you freak. Like, come on
You
now.
fucking freak.
Yeah, like, you know she's in the area. You saw Jonathan's photo.
Yeah, dude.
Like, don't act brand new. I don't know. That was like, if he's like, oh, don't see me.
I got caught.
And I'm just like, don't rape. How about that?
How about that?
How about that?
How about that?
Yeah, like, what if we just did that instead?
Right.
Yeah, the immediate aftermath is truly, I think, like, what the hardest scene to watch in the movie.
Yeah, it's really tough. And then on the other hand, I would argue that there is another rape scene in this film, which is Jonathan and the brides.
Yeah.
I would construe that as a rape. It's not as graphic, but it's pretty graphic.
Yeah.
It's like so scary.
It's really scary. It's a scary scene. Yeah.
Like all of those like practical effects in play, like Colleen, you mentioned it, like the sheets moving, like with the like mirror above the bed, like it's a bummer, I guess, because like the effects and everything in that are so good. And like I made a note of this, like when first of all, I love whenever Dracula gets like so mad when the brides like go after Jonathan. It's like so gay coded to me.
Oh yeah.
And he's just like, no, he's mine.
He's mine, dude.
But there's like, I was so creeped out, like when he like banishes them, like two of the brides make some sort of weird like human centipede like figure, and they like creep away, and I was like, oh my god. And that's another effect that I think is used so well, is like just rewinding the footage, and it looks so eerie, like the movement looks so unnatural. Like we see it when Lucy like goes back in her crypt like later, like it just makes the motion look so upsetting and like uncanny valley. I think like and like there's like a weird like part where the brides are like suckling his nip and the blood is like just spraying, which I was like, oh, where's it going, what, like that. I was like, I always just like, oh my god, like, yeah, no, that always like kind of scares me. And then also I wrote that there's like little rats running upside down, which I love. That like I'm like, oh, vampire rats. They're crawling up. But yeah, no, that is like, I think in this one, maybe more so than some other adaptations, like you do see that like Jonathan is like pretty agonized by this, even though like they are like extremely sexy. Like he's like, no, I love Mina.
Yeah,
he's like, sorry, Monica Bellucci, don't come near me.
as like Nina texted us several weeks ago when we were watching, just in all caps, the criminally underutilized Monica Bellucci.
Like it's insane how little she's in the movie. Like she's insanely gorgeous and hot.
Stupid.
And I'm like, they couldn't have made her character a little bigger. They made everyone else's character bigger.
Like, just a single line for my queen. What?
No, literally. Can my queen get a line?
And then having Harker be trapped in the castle for slightly longer in this version, and it cuts to him, and he's just like in the pit. Like they are just snacking on my man Keanu in a pit for like weeks. I'm like, jeez, that's dark, dude. Christ alive.
It is. No, and he's like, the only way I can escape is if I jump like out into the river. Yeah,
pretty much. Sheesh.
Which I think happens in the book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's like found by nuns or something, right?
Yep. He sees Dracula like scaling down the castle. He's like, I guess I can do that.
Why can't
Which
you
I also love.
Oh yeah, we got a wall crawl. Tick tick, let's go.
I love and a wall crawl in his like insane robe.
Yeah, it was fucking sick.
Also, okay, another thing about the bride scene. Sorry, I feel like
No,
this
please,
episode of
let's
the
go.
pod is going to be like 10 hours
No.
long.
We definitely budgeted for this.
Yep.
Okay, cool. It's like when Dracula's like, no, he is a mine, girly pops. He like is like, but here, I have a baby you can eat. And I was like, not the baby. I was like, oh my god, I forgot about that. And Jonathan is just like in the back, like making insane like
he's screaming
sounds of horror, which I'm like, you know what? Yeah,
understandably very upset.
I'm like, fair. Yeah, I forgot about the baby.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that like that threw me. I was like, oh my god, ew, this is so dark.
That's in the novel and in one of the 70s versions, but like it's been a while since we've had a little baby snackaroo here.
Yeah, like I'm like, oof, seeing it also not great. But it does like amp like the horror elements of this, which I do love. That it is like there are very genuinely unsettling moments throughout this movie.
Yeah, dude, it's rough. One other scene I wanted to point out before we move on to like individual acting performances was the main love scene between Mina and Dracula, in which she feeds off him. In the novel, that is a big scene of horror because she is forced to do that. In this one, it is consensual. However, this scene, and again, the theater kid is showing, if I were to teach like an acting class, I would use parts of this scene because there are a lot of beats, meaning trying to figure out what the motivation of each character is, per section. In some scenes in this movie, there's one beat for a whole scene. In this single, 5 or 6 minute scene, the motivations between these two characters changes 15 fucking times. It starts with her being like, yes, I want to change. Then him being like, no, I can't do this to you. They go back and forth constantly, probably every 30 seconds for 5 or 6 minutes. And it is hard to keep track of. But it is still a big, sexy scene. Many bonus points go to Gary Oldman for not giving a fuck about looking silly, but having his arms extended and yelling in ecstasy. Great work. Love that. I just wanted to point that out because I was like, there is a lot going on in this very short amount of time. She's mad at him. She finds out that he murders Lucy and she's like, I cannot believe you killed my friend, but also I want to be with you. It just keeps going in a circle, dude.
It's very and I think when Winona talked about the script and why she liked it, I think this movie is very good at showing you kind of the negative results of being so sexually repressed. And I feel obviously Lucy is a product of that, but I think Mina even more so because she's clearly interested in sex. I think about the scene where she's reading Arabian Nights and it or the book opens and it's
porn.
She looks at it and she's like, how disgustingly awful, but then keeps looking at it, and I was like, she's so real for that. I think this scene is such a byproduct of that repressed sexuality, because she's clearly so intrigued and sexually aroused by this person, but she's her rational brain is girly, you cannot do this, he killed your friend, but she's so almost sex crazed in that moment where she's I don't know, am I just gonna give in? And I think that's what a main reason before of the the back and forth, especially on her side.
And there's a scene, speaking of an actual friendship between Lucy and Mina. They are that scene where she finds Arabian Nights. They start looking at it together later, and it's I don't know. It's very cute. It's very charming.
Yeah, no, I love that scene.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's good.
And then Lucy's I did that last night, and Winona's no, you didn't. And she's like, in my dreams. I'm like,
Oh my
okay,
God.
queen.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, man. Apparently, one of the scenes where Sadie Frost is like, I think dreaming of Dracula, she's just like fully like writhing in a bed. Coppola asked Oldman to like speak to her seductively off camera, which I think is very funny. Anyway, all right. Should we talk a little bit about some particular actors here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Let's kind of go in reverse here, because I think we should save our man for last. But glossing over the criminally underutilized Monica Bellucci, we've got Tom Waits as Renfield. Renfield has an interesting role in this. We once again wound up with what I refer to as Terry Gilliam Renfield, where everything looks like it's shot in a fisheye lens, and it could be a deleted scene from 12 Monkeys. Yeah, so it's Kooky Crazy Renfield time. But I forgot this was fucking Tom Waits. I was like, hold up.
He does such a good job.
He does great. He did a great job. Again, Ron Perlman.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's tethered.
Good God.
I read that apparently Steve Buscemi was the first choice for Renfield in this.
Oh my God.
Which, like, I'm like, that could have been incredible. I'm not gonna lie.
Dude, not gonna lie.
But I'm not gonna knock Tom. I think he does a very good job. I especially like when he gets mad at Dracula because he, like, changes a quote-unquote pretty woman before him. He's like, gets so mad at Dracula because he's like, you promised me eternal life, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, but you let this bitch get, like, in the way. Like, I like do, and, like, his, like, overall mania and, like, the whole, not even, like, just the acting, but the whole, like, set piece of that, like, hospital, like, insane asylum, essentially, is, like, so creepy and good and very, like, almost, like, very, like, steampunk, kind of. Which I love, unfortunately.
Next we have, and this one I will give to Will, Billy Campbell as Quincy P. Morris. What'd you think, Will?
Okay, so he is doing a Texas accent that is as wide as the side of a barn, and I love it. It is perfect. We have not seen Quincy really as he should be in any of these versions so far. When we've seen him in the past, he has been like, just if you made he's always been like, if you made Seward American, but this is our introduction, and I assume most people who are encountering like Dracula in the text of the book, their first introduction to Quincy Morris, and this is the perfect way to do it. He is like a fun, goofy, like charming, like cowboy. That is what's great about him. He has a giant mustache. He is great. I think of the three, particularly in this version, he has like out of the trio, he's got the least really going on.
I don't really think that's his fault, though.
But
frankly.
that's not his fault. And I think he takes whatever limited writing he's got. That pool doesn't run very deep, but the surface of it is dazzling.
Yeah, that's very much where I'm at. Yeah, hard agree. When I first saw him for a split second, I thought it was Ethan Hawke. And I was like,
wish.
I wish. Billy Campbell did a great job, but again, like the alternate universe version of this movie is insane.
Oh my god, yeah, the weird other casting choices that could have been made.
On the polar opposite end of types of dudes, we have Cary Elwes as Mr. Arthur Holmwood. Absolutely perfect. Holmwood is usually kind of milquetoast, even in the novel. I think Cary Elwes brings a certain heel energy to every role he touches, and that is absolutely perfect. He's a little bit snooty. He's a little bit of a jerk. But I always like when in your main group of people, there's one person who you kind of have to convince a little bit. He seemed to be grudging, But I kind of like that. I thought he did a great job, and this was also very good casting for kind of a bit part.
Yeah. The three of them together is so good.
Yeah,
I think
dude.
like they work so well together. Like all the like any scene with like all of them and Van Helsing, I was like yum yum yum, like I'm slurping this up. I love this like weird like quartet.
Yeah, dude.
And like yeah, and of course you always have to have a character who it's like this is blasphemy. Like his like no, it's like this is ridiculous. Like you always have to have that character.
You need someone reluctant.
Yeah, and I do think, like, you're so right about the heel energy. Like, it's almost, like, impossible for him to just play, like, a straightforward good character. Like, he can never do that.
Nope.
But I will say, like, I do appreciate that he obviously genuinely cares for Lucy. And I think all of them really do, which is, like...
Oh, absolutely.
Also nice to see, like...
It's why it works, yeah.
Yeah, like, you can tell they all genuinely care about her well-being, even if, like... she didn't pick them. Like, they're more than willing to help because they're like, they're clearly good people and did like care for her enough where it's not just like, she turned me down, so now I don't care what happens.
Right. Then we've got Richard E. Grant as Dr. Jack Seward.
So good.
You know, like, I think that he probably has the weakest performance of the three. But I didn't dislike it. I liked that they had some details like him being addicted to drugs. Probably every fucking doctor was in the Victorian era. And I liked that he was a little forlorn. He could have done an incel Seward. I could see it.
Yes.
But yeah, what'd you guys think of him? Okay, acceptable.
Yeah.
I just love Richard E. Grant, so
That's
unfortunately I'm grading him on like such a bell curve.
That's legit. I'll accept it.
I think...
And I do, yeah.
Here's my thing is I love Richard E. Grant too. I feel like he's not... And maybe it's the character, but he's not like erupting off of the screen the way everyone else is. It's a very like inward facing role. And I think part of it is, you know, I just saw the movie With Noel and I for the first time pretty recently, which is like one of his defining roles, and he's so magnetic in that movie. Like his every monologue, every line he delivers is like alternately like tragic or bitchy, or somehow tragic and bitchy. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited to see him in this again, but I feel like he is playing a character who like really retreats into himself after he feels like he has been rebuffed by Lucy. But playing a character who retreats into himself and into laudanum or opium does not necessarily make for like necessarily the most dynamic screen presence.
That's very, very legit. I am in agreement with you there.
Yeah.
We touched on this a bit. Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I sent you guys that clip of him in just, like, The Little Vampire.
Yes, what the
fuck? And he's, like, randomly I think that's the first time I, like, saw him as an actor, and he's, like, so good in that. It's actually
bizarre.
insane.
It's bizarre.
He is, like, acting his, like, Grand Tussie off in that. Like, and he's so... It's, like, almost, like, in an alternate universe, like, he could be Dracula, because he's just, like, rizzed the fuck out in this kid's movie.
It's insane.
And he's, like, so... Yeah, I guess, like, in terms of, like, his other roles, this is definitely not his best... Because he's clearly, like, is like, so magnetic in that random kids movie.
Yeah, it's whack. It's whack.
But it is whack. But I do think, like, in terms of the ensemble, he works well. I think they all play their role very well, especially when they're all together. It's, like, it's, like, that's the crew you kind of want to be going after Dracula. Like, they all kind of bring something else. Everyone brings something
to the table,
to the field. Yeah.
We touched on this a bit, but Sadie Frost as Lucy Westrena, probably the best Lucy we've seen.
Oh, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. vulnerable, funny, cute, coquettish, relatable, tragic. Slay. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like the most fleshed out that character like ever is, I would say.
Sir
she
Anthony
crushes it.
Yeah, crushes it.
I was just gonna say she crushes it.
Sir Anthony Hopkins as Professor Van Helsing.
What is
happening?
What were his directions in this character?
Don't know.
Because
They were just to say ja for every yes. That was it.
That's it.
And they're
like there is
I think they just were like they were probably like just feel it out.
what
are you thinking?
I think so. There was a documentary that's on YouTube that you can find about like the making of this. And one, if you want to see a bunch of like A-list Hollywood actors and heartthrobs playing Zip Zap Zop at Francis Ford Coppola's
Shut the fuck up.
ranch, I have great news.
God damn it.
No.
But one of the things in this documentary is Anthony Hopkins talking about his personality, and there's like particularly the scene where he meets Mina I think it's either when he meets Lucy or Mina for the first time, and part of it is like I think I should play the character going in and sniffing her. That wasn't written down, but that was just like a little thing. It's like I just feel like this is a thing he would do. They'll be like, wait a minute, you can like smell, like he can smell the touch of the vampire on her or something.
Oh my god.
So
he definitely gives that vibe to Van Helsing.
Yeah, 100%. This is such an off-kilter, blunt Van Helsing, but I love it. I think sometimes we get like bumbling academic Van Helsing. Sometimes we get sexy monster hunter Van Helsing. This is just like kooky old guy. Like this is off the wall, kind of mean, kind of desperate. I really liked it. I don't think I've seen a Van Helsing like it. But I am also in agreement. Like, how the fuck did he come up with this? Why? Like, what's happening?
Can I tell you the moment that made me laugh out the loudest in this movie?
Yes.
It's like a part where I think it's after when they're after they've actually like killed Lucy and brought her to the peace. Where in the process of this, I think he gets like blood vomited onto him by Lucy.
Yes.
And they're explaining it, I think, to Mina, like what they did and what they had to do. And I think she has a question where she's like, was it painful for her? Was she in pain? And he just like has none of her shit. He's like, yeah, we cut her head off and put a stake through her heart. I think it's hurt.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my god. Yes. No, he's so like, he's very like, embodies the like Eastern European, like extremely blunt. And like, he brings that like kind of like academic-y, like no nonsense mixed in with this kind of like man of like mythology. It's like a very interesting blend where it's like, yeah, I'm sniffing her because I also like, I clearly like believe the tales of like the old country, but like I'm also like a scientist. It's like, so I think it's like a very interesting balance that he has that I think works very well, and
Agreed.
I don't think could have been done as well by someone else.
Hard agree. We have our boy, the much maligned Keanu Reeves as Jonathan Harker. Oh, buddy. His performance is not bad. He tried. The performance is not bad at all. I think Jonathan is a very hard role to play because there's not a lot to it. I think it is hard to take the performance at face value because the accent is distracting. I feel like if we could like turn off all accents for everybody in this film, everybody would think he did a much better job than he got credit for. It's not great. He doesn't sound great. That's all I got. It doesn't sound great. Sorry, bud. You tried. You tried so hard. I love you. It's not your fault.
I'll say one thing for this Prince Among Men. Is that I feel like, especially once he's back in London, I think he has what very few Harkers usually have in film adaptations, where he has the quiet, confused sense of helplessness and rage that Jonathan has in the book. where he feels...
I think that's a great point.
And
yeah.
I think the fact that he's also, like, clearly there is, like, some love affair going on between the two of them only stokes that more. And there's, like, a quiet anger that at the very end gets to explode. And I think he nails that really well. Even if he cannot actually, you know, every time he tries to articulate it, it comes out through the most haunting accent of all time. But I think the way that he just kind of holds himself when he doesn't actually have to speak, great.
Yes, I do agree, Will. I think the second half of his appearance is much stronger. I think that he does very, like, the subdued, like, more nuanced portrayal better. And I don't know if maybe that's because of, like, like, we don't have to encounter the speaking voice as much, but I think, like, he's clearly more suited, I think, to be more that, like, very internalized version of Jonathan.
It's like, I think one of the things that you see, particularly now in his later career, that I feel like people, like, back then only saw him as being this kind of, like, beautiful, long-haired, like, pretty boy, is that he has this, like, real sense of, like, quiet tragedy in a lot of his, like it's part of the appeal of, like, John Wick, right? It's also, like, you watch, like, Bill and Ted Face the Music, he brings this real sense of, like, defeated, like, optimism to the role that is, like, heartbreaking. And looking at this, I'm like, oh, he's always been capable of that. It's just, we all kind of saw it more as he aged.
Yeah, well, because his life in real life was sad. So I think, like, that he has a lot to, unfortunately, has a lot to tap into for those, like, quieter performances. But I do think that's why, like, in his, like, obviously in his career now, he is so, like, beloved, especially as, like, John Wick being, like, such a huge character. I could have never predicted that, but, like, that is, like, the perfect role for him, weirdly enough.
Agree. Hard agree. We've got Winona Ryder as Mina Harker when she's very young. I thought she did a great job. My controversial take is that I also didn't think her accent was very good. She's trying hard, but I don't think it's great. However, her chemistry with Oldman just crushes the entire film. It's incredible. She does a great job.
Yeah, she's good with Oldman, and then also with Sadie Frost. I think they have great chemistry too. I think, like, because honestly, aside from Jonathan, I think Mina has good interactions with, like, all the other side characters.
Except Jonathan, yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
that, like, kind of... And I think she benefits from Keanu's accent being, like, so blatantly bad that I feel like she gets away with it. Because it's, like... And I think her performance, again, is, like... She has... Well, to be fair to Keanu, like, that role has so much more to do that I think, like, the accent is very secondary to everything else she's doing and everything her boobs are doing.
Oh God,
they're
out and about.
They're of themselves.
God bless. They're just fully out.
Yeah, Nina, if I may, I was going to pick my note of yours.
I think we have the same note.
We have the same note. Will, if you will do the honors.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, Winona's boobs are crucial characters.
There it is. Shaking hands over that note. Thank you for that,
Nicely done,
Nina.
everybody.
Yeah. I think you can't watch this movie and not think that.
No, good God, they're beautiful.
Yeah. Nothing but respect for my two queens.
For my girls. Good
for
God.
the girlies.
And then lastly but not least, Gary Oldman as Count Dracula himself. I'm going to go ahead and, like, break the format here a little bit. I'm going to put him as my number 2 Dracula of all time.
Whoa.
Yeah. I think he is really so good. Fucking good.
He's, like, always been very... Talk about someone who brings, like, a heel energy to everything.
Yes.
Like, he is so good at playing, like, a morally gray character.
Yes. He's magnetic. He's incredible to watch.
And I know I made a note of this, but I think, like, in a lot of adaptations, like, Dracula is so, like, he's coded in such a specifically, like, ethnic way.
Yeah.
That, like, Gary Oldman really does not fit that in a way that I was like, I thought was kind of like refreshing.
Yeah, dude.
Almost. Like, I know I made a note of this, but like the fact that he has like such blue eyes is like so standout as Dracula.
Yeah. And like when he's in his like young man swag, he's very charming. Like he's legitimately charming. Like you can like, it's not just like magic spooky. Like he really puts his all into this in terms of the emotion. Like it opens with him like again renouncing God and like screaming no to the heavens and like shaking in the most dramatic way possible. But like it suits the tone. He's committed the whole way through. Yeah, it's just it's hard to top that IMO.
No, I agree. And like again, the wig work is incredible.
Yes.
And I again, the like couldn't 10 million shout outs to like hair and makeup and costume team on this. Like the old face makeup on him is so good. It's akin to like Max von Sydow in The Exorcist, where like you forget that he filmed that as like a young man, because that's just like what he looked like as an old man. And talk about an old man, Oldman, Gary. It's like I'm like, you can tell it's like you have a true master at work when you're like, oh yeah, now that I know what he looks like as an older man, like this is incredible makeup work, because like it really is just like, it doesn't look like some sad like just like saggy, sad, like exaggerated old person, even though it's so over the top. I don't know, it's like, it's great. Again, nothing but I can't like I know Coppola specifically put a ton of the budget into like costuming and makeup and everything, and like it fucking shows. Like that is like the fact that I know this came out in 92, so like 40 million back then was like way more than it is now, but even still, like they used every cent of that, and it just looks phenomenal. Like to this day,
there is
like 30 years later.
There's a quote that Oldman has in that documentary, "The Blood Is Life," where he talks about how he wanted to play Dracula like a fallen angel, which I think is like just a really cool quote. I also think it does the loophole that goes against the other Draculas, where by saying that instead of saying that he wants to play Dracula with sexuality, he in fact is just playing the sexiest Dracula. Like, just by not even like trying to consciously do it, he just is. Yeah. He's way up there at the top for me too. I think I don't know if he's going to be the one that defines the performance, but defines the role for me, but he's great, especially because he gets to be so many different versions of this character. You get to see a lot of different reflections of who Dracula is across 2 hours. And I think he really, like he does with a lot of his movies, just disappears into it.
Yeah. He's definitely the best, like, in terms of, like, Dracula, like, romantic Dracula. I think, like, he's, like, nobody else is doing it like this. Like, he is so, like, lovelorn and, like, I've crossed oceans of time to find you.
Iconic.
Which he said that's, like, one of the main reasons he took the role, is because he's like, I need to say that in a movie. And I was like, you know what?
Damn. I respect it.
Work. Same.
Work. Will, do you want to give us our contemporary reviews before we wrap up this bad boy?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, as I wrote down here in my notes, shit was mixed as hell. This is a movie that
that's fair.
Was a big hit, but critics really didn't know what to do with it. Roger Ebert, I think, gave it good marks. He actually really liked it. I have a quote from him. I said, "Faced with narrative confusions and dead ends, why does Dracula want to buy those London properties in such specific locations? I enjoyed the movie simply for the way it looked and felt. Production designers Dante Ferretti and Thomas Sanders have outdone themselves. The cinematographer, Michael Bauhaus, gets into the spirit so completely, he always seems to light with shadows. Oldman and Ryder and Hopkins pant with eagerness. The movie is an exercise in feverish excess, and for that, if for little else, I enjoyed it. Meanwhile, Kenneth Turan of the LA Times really hated it. He was quoted saying, "It may be that Coppola's enthusiastic embracing of a fresh approach to a story that has had no difficulty pleasantly chilling moviegoers for a full 70 years was suspect to begin with. It perhaps signaled a director who saw himself as too limited by mere genre material, who, to save himself from feeling he was slumming, decided he wasn't really making a horror film after all, but rather a love story, a comic burlesque, a costume drama, a piece of erotica, whatever. But no matter what else you have to do with it, a Dracula that cannot manage to be more scary than silly is as pitilessly doomed as the elegant old Transylvanian himself."
Oof, harsh, dude. Man, yeah, I get it. Like, it's tough. It's a tough movie to talk about.
Yeah, like the second you start analyzing, I'm like, yeah, it's gonna fall apart. Like, immediately. Like, it is weird that Dracula is already planning on buying all that land before he even realizes that Mina's in London. It's like,
it's weird.
It's like,
Again,
it's like, wow,
yeah.
Oh my god, I got so lucky.
That's why it's like the original plot of the novel is like, oh, I was just gonna go terrorize a new land and spread my evil, but I guess I'm gonna, hook up with my wife again instead. Cool.
Yeah.
And, like, I think we're all on the same page of, like, did we enjoy this movie? Yes. Is it good? Not sure. Don't care to answer that question, actually.
Here's my
don't
thing.
fucking know.
Movie doesn't have to be good for me to enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's my thing is I agree with Kenneth Turan in that it is, rather than just a horror film, it is a love story, a comic burlesque, a costume drama, a piece of erotica. That's what's cool about it. And I think that's
why I like it.
Here's the thing is my take on it is that a lot of people see it as being like a big important costume drama, and it spun off like other weird like prestige horror movies like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or Mary Riley, the version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with Julia Roberts. But I would propose that this isn't supposed to be a serious costume drama. This is, he was telling the story to scare and delight 9-year-olds so then he could go, like, make out with his girlfriend. And I think he has similar intentions. He's making a B picture, like, something that is appealing to the back row, like, appealing to people in the cheap seats, but he's putting all of his care and his craft into it. It's a man who's, like, lovingly assembling a great burger.
Yes, absolutely. Man. All right, I guess just like 2 more quick things here. What do you guys think of the end of this movie? In the end of this, we have Mina actually being the one to kill Dracula, and then it's over. Like, kind of abruptly. IMO.
Yeah, I think you said that in your notes, and I was like, yep.
Like, it's it falls a little flat for me in the end.
Yeah, I do like that Mina is the one to kill him.
Yeah.
I think, like, that is, like, poetic and nice, and, like, of course, it's kind of, like, of course, when there's any vampiric character, it's, like, the ultimate, like, kindness you can do for them is just, like, end their life.
Yeah.
Or their undead life. So, I do think it was nice to have her do that. I think, like, Colleen, you mentioned that, like, a lot of her, like, autonomy kind of gets taken away in this. So it is kind of nice that she does get that big hero moment at the end, but then it literally just drops off. It's like, oh, okay, wrap it up.
We're done. Roll the credits.
Like, especially for how, like, big the beginning is, it does just end.
I do like the moment of trust where Jonathan is like, all right, no, you gotta go do what you gotta do. That part is pretty cool. But it feels like it ends with, like, the almost, like, comically graphic death. Like, she, like, cuts this guy's head off. It is not, like, a quiet little dignified death. It is insane. And then then just, like, the pan up to, like, the mural of them on the ceiling, which feels like it should, like, I guess it's supposed to be, like, their endearing spirit together, but it also just feels more like, that was there. I feel like maybe,
Cool.
maybe, and I guess it occurs to me now, and I don't want to, like, cinema sins this, but never occurred to Jonathan when he's there for like a month to just like look up at that and be like, hey, wait a minute.
Yep. He's like, no. And then it all makes sense. He's like, you did look at my picture of Mina really weird that one time.
Huh. Who could have imagined? Womp
yeah,
womp.
it is like, it's like so much like plot and like detail is forsaken for just pure vibes in this.
And like, that's fine. That's fine. We know what it is. We can enjoy it for the vibes. Okay, so I think that brings us to the choosing of the notes. Will and I both chose the same note for you, Nina, because you were extremely correct about that. Will, my choice of note for you, which is what I was thinking the entire time. How is this even crazier than I remembered?
It's so true. It is somehow more absurd than I remembered it being, which feels like
I don't
it's
even
not
know how.
possible.
And yet, here we are.
My favorite note from you, Colleen, is based cuck John Harker.
For the end, him just being like, "Yeah, go ahead, do the murder, fucking whatever. I see you, girl." Good God,
there's a lot of cuckery in this.
So much cuckery, dude. Cuckery,
even Homewood,
duckery.
who's like, he's like, "Hey, go be with Lucy to kind of fix her." He's like, "I don't care. Both of you can go."
I don't fucking care. Whatever.
The whole movie is just like the Chad Dracula versus the John Harker.
Yes.
God damn it.
No, but yes. Yes.
Well, Nina, thank you so much for fucking joining us.
Yes.
This was so fun. I think this will be our longest episode, but it's so worth it. So fucking worth it. This has been such a delight.
This is a milestone episode. It needs to be.
Yeah, you have great taste, and you're great to talk to. So thank you so much.
I was gonna say I could have done this for another hour.
Hardcore.
I could talk about this because yes, I agree. It is crazier than I remember. Also, so it's fun when the mind does that. Yes. And you're like, oh, I kind of toned this down in my brain.
Oh, this is actually so much more worse and better at the same time.
Yeah, I think that stems from also knowing more about film now. So you're like, oh my God, these transitions are. One of the transitions, sorry, I'm like, okay, this is a Midwestern goodbye on a 100%. Podcast. It's like, there's one, like, transition that I'm like, this is straight out of Star Wars. Like, that, one infamous transition where it just, like, circles in on C-3PO. They just, like, do that at one point in this, and it just, like, zooms in on, like, London. I'm just like, okay.
What the fuck?
I was like, that's beautiful. I was like, can't forget we're in like 1992. Really gotta bring me back down to earth.
Yeah. Well, of course, I have to end with a Dracula tweet. So today's tweet is brought to us by @TomWalkerIsGood. I know everyone's like, the only way to kill Dracula is a stake through the heart, but in modern times, I think we should at least try hitting him with a very fast car. I don't know. I mean, like, that's actually kind of a plot point in Buffy, but like not with Dracula. Like there's a character who's like, no weapon forged can kill me, and she was like, rocket launchers weren't invented, and just like fucking obliterates him.
That makes such a good point, though.
It's gotta be pure Detroit steel. None of these import fucking cars.
Yes. Oh my God.
That's good. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on this extremely beautiful episode. This was a fucking delight. Nina, thank you for coming. We love you. Will, I'll catch you around. All you beautiful people, I'll see you around as well.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.